Hi guys, welcome to another biology video. In this video, I'll be describing the answers to biology paper 2 for 2021 for GCE candidates. Section A, short answer questions, 44 marks. Answer all questions in the space provided on the question paper. Question 1. The diagram below is an incomplete reaction for certain characteristics of living things. Part A, 1. Identify substance F. Substance F is simply glucose. Part 2. What characteristic of living things is illustrated by the reaction? This reaction is actually illustrating respiration. Part B. 1. Which characteristic of living things produces substance F? The characteristic of living things that produces F is nutrition. Part 2. Name 3 uses of energy in living things. In living things, energy can be used for active transport. It can also be used for protein synthesis, and we can also use it for cell division. Part C, 1. What type of metabolic reaction is illustrated in the diagram above? The type of metabolic reaction being shown is catabolism. Part 2. State 2 characteristics of living things which does not take place throughout the life of the living thing. The characteristic that does not take place throughout is reproduction. Question 2. Figure 2 shows the stages involved in an enzyme catalyzed reaction inside cells of a living body. Part A. From stage 1 in figure 2, identify 1. Enzyme. The enzyme here is labeled I. Part 2. Substrate. The substrate here are labeled G and H. Part B. 1. Which stage shows the enzyme substrate complex? The enzyme substrate complex is shown by stage 2. Part 2. Label the active site on figure 2. The active site is where the substrates are fitting, so we'll label this part as our active site. Part C1. What type of metabolic reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme in figure 2? The type of metabolic reaction is anabolism. Part 2. Name a region in the human body where such a metabolic reaction in C1 above can occur. Anabolism can occur inside the liver. Part 3. State the general term used to refer to enzymes that work inside the cells. The term is referred to as intracellular enzymes. Part D. Describe 2 industrial applications of enzymes. Enzymes can be used in baking. We can also use enzymes in brewing. Question 3. Figure 3 shows part of an organ of a plant. Part A1. Identify structures G and K. Part G is the upper epidermis with the waxy cuticle. Then part K is the chloroplast of the gut cell. Part 2. State 1 structural difference between structures G and J. So the difference between G and J is that J has a stoma while G has no stoma. Part B. Identify the plant organ in figure 3. The plant organ is a leaf. Part C1. In which labeled region in figure 3 is the rate of photosynthesis highest? Photosynthesis is highest in the part or region which is H. Part 2. Give a reason for your answer in C1. The reason why photosynthesis is higher in region H is because it has got more chloroplasts. Part D. Explain why the arrangement of cells in the region labeled I is important for photosynthesis. Region I is the air spaces, and in the air spaces the cells are spacely packed to create air spaces which are needed for rapid diffusion of gases for carrying out photosynthesis, for example carbon dioxide and oxygen. Question 4. Figure 4 shows a human elbow in longitudinal section. Part A, name the parts labeled A, B, and C. Part A is the cartilage. Then part B is the synovial membrane. Then part C is simply the ligament. Part B, give one function for each part in A above. The function of the cartilage is to prevent the wearing out of the bones due to friction. Then the function of B, which is the synovial membrane. So the synovial membrane will actually produce synovial fluid. Then part C, which is the ligament. The ligament's function is to hold the two bones together. Part C1, which part, D or E, can be affected by cancer of the bone? So the part which can be affected is part E. C2, name the part affected by cancer of the bone in C1 above. The part which is affected is the bone marrow. Part D, name the type of joint shown in figure 4 above. The type of joint shown here is the hinge joint. Question 5a, part 1. Name two traits in plants which show discontinuous variation. The first trait which we can use is here is the flower color. Apart from flower color, we can also use seed color. Part 2, state two factors that cause variation in animals. Variation can be caused by one, genetic factors, and secondly, it can be affected by environmental factors. Part B, in humans, black hair is dominant over blonde hair. Using letters capital B and small b, show using a genetic diagram why a male parent, black hair, had some children with black hair and other children with blonde hair, with his wife who had blonde hair. To start our genetic diagram, the first thing we are going to write is the parental phenotype. So we are going to write black hair will be crossed with blonde hair. Then our next stage which we are going to write will be the parental genotype. So the blonde hair and the black hair, the genotype for black hair will be capital B, small b, blonde hair, small b, small b. Then our next stage is for us to write the gametes by splitting the genotype. So we have capital B, small b, and small b. After writing our gametes, we then start crossing. So we have the capital B cross with the small b, capital B cross with small b with another small b with another small b. After we've written this, we'll now indicate to say this is now our F1 offspring genotype. So which will now give us heterozygous with heterozygous and the homozygous with the homozygous. So since we have heterozygous, the heterozygous will be black hair and the homozygous will be blonde hair. So this will now be our F1 offspring genotype. So this is how you show your genetic diagram. Section B, essay questions, 36 marks. Answer any 3 questions in this section. All answers must be in complete sentences and in paragraphs. Write your answers in the separate answer booklet provided. Question 6a, define aerobic respiration. B, describe the production of adenosine triphosphate in cells of living organisms. C, compare and contrast respiration in plants to that in human beings. Part A, aerobic respiration is the process by which living organisms will release energy from glucose in living cells in the presence of oxygen. This process releases a relatively high amount of energy, and the byproducts produced are carbon dioxide and water. Part B, energy from respiration is not used directly by organisms, but is used to produce ATP by combining adenosine triphosphate and inorganic phosphate. Energy from ATP is then used by living organisms. When the energy is needed, ATP breaks down to ADP and inorganic phosphate, releasing energy in the process. Part C. In comparison, both plants and animals use oxygen, both use glucose, both produce carbon dioxide, and both produce water. In contrast, plants get oxygen from photosynthesis during the day and the atmosphere at night, while in animals get oxygen from the atmosphere throughout. In plants, carbon dioxide can be released during daytime, while in animals, carbon dioxide is released all the time. In plants, carbon dioxide produced is a raw material for photosynthesis during the day, while in animals, carbon dioxide produced is always a waste product. Question 7. A. Describe the internal structure of the heart. Part B. 1. Explain the causes of coronary heart disease. Part 2. Explain ways of preventing coronary heart disease. Part A. The heart is a muscular organ that pumps blood around the body through blood vessels. The type of muscle found in the walls of the heart is known as a cardiac muscle. The heart is divided into left and right sides by a middle wall called the septum. The heart has 4 chambers: the right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, and left ventricle. The heart also contains 4 valves: the bicuspid, tricuspid, aortic semilunar valve, and pulmonary semilunar valve. The heart is connected to 4 blood vessels: the vena cava, pulmonary artery, aorta, and the pulmonary vein. Part B. 1. The factors that will increase the risk of coronary heart disease will include the following: excessive intake of fatty foods. Fatty foods are easily converted to cholesterol, which in turn will block the coronary arteries. Smoking. Cigarette smoke will contain a stimulant called nicotine, which tends to promote the accumulation of cholesterol in the blood. Then emotional stress. The body will secrete high levels of adrenaline during emotional stress. This also tends to promote accumulation of cholesterol in the blood stream. Then lack of exercise will also lead to coronary heart disease. Part 2. Coronary heart disease can actually be prevented by 1. Avoiding excessive intake of fatty foods, avoiding smoking, avoid emotional stress, and also take time to relax and exercise regularly. Question 8, Part A. Explain using named examples the following terms. 1. Cranial reflex. 2. Conditioned reflex. 3. Spinal reflex. B. Explain why each of the following reflex actions are important to the body of any organism. 1. Cranial reflex. 2. Conditioned reflex. Part C. Describe how an impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another. Part A. 1. Cranial reflex are reflexes that are processed in the brain, for example, blinking, coughing, and salivation. 2. Conditioned reflex is an automatic response to a stimulus resulting from learning or training, which involves the brain, for example, walking, riding a bicycle, or writing. Part 3. Spinal reflex is a reflex that is processed through the spinal cord, for example, knee jerk or withdrawal of a hand from a hot object. Part B. 1. Cranial reflexes protects the inner parts of the eye, and coughing protects the respiratory tract. 2. Conditioned reflex enables an individual to develop new skills, for example, feeding themselves or driving a car. Part C. A nerve impulse moves from one neuron to another across a synapse. The neurons at the synapse are not joined to each other, but have a gap between them called a synaptic cleft. An impulse arrives at the synapse. At the end plates, there are vesicles containing a neurotransmitter. The vesicles fuse with the presynaptic membrane, and the chemical is released into the synaptic gap. The chemical diffuses across the gap, and the impulse restarts at the other side. That's how an impulse is transmitted. Question 9a. Explain the importance of fungi. B. Distinguish between sexual and asexual reproduction. C. With named examples, describe the features of animal dispersed seeds. Part A. Fungi are decomposers that cause the decay of dead organic matter, releasing inorganic nutrients into the soil. Fungi cause diseases such as ringworm. Mushrooms are a good food source, rich in proteins, dietary fiber, and vitamin B. Yeast is used in baking and brewing. Penicillium fungi produces penicillin and antibiotic used to treat bacterial infections. Part B. In asexual reproduction, no mate is required, while in sexual reproduction, a mate is required. In sexual reproduction, a large number of offsprings are produced, while in sexual reproduction, a small number of offsprings are produced. In asexual reproduction, parental features are passed on unchanged, while in sexual reproduction, parental features may change. In asexual reproduction, gametes are not involved, while in sexual reproduction, gametes are involved. Asexual reproduction occurs at any time, while sexual reproduction occurs after a period of time. Part C. Animal dispersed seeds have the following characteristics: presence of hooks to cling to the fur of animals, for example, blackjack. The hooks irritate the animal, causing it to shake off the seeds off some distance away from the parent. Some plants are succulent, have succulent mesocarps to attract and reward animals, for example, mangoes. They also have brightly colored pericarps to attract animals to the fruit, especially when ripe, for example, oranges. Seeds have hard taster, which are resistant to digestive enzymes found in the guts of animals, for example, guavas. Some fruits are scented to attract animals, for example, oranges. Question 10. A. Explain the meaning of the term conservation. B. Identify the importance of conserving plants and animal species. C. Describe the importance of sustainable use of resources. Part A. Conservation is the protection of species, their habitats, and the ecosystems from extinction. Part B. There are several reasons for conserving plants and animal species. It has a aesthetic value to the ecosystem, which creates ecotourism. Plants and animals are sources of food. Plants have medicinal properties like moringa tree. Plants and animals are important for educational purposes. Plants are a valuable resource for timber for construction. Part C. Sustainable use of resources eliminates overfishing. It controls deforestation. It eliminates overhunting and reduces extinction of species. So these were the solutions to question number 10. Once you are done answering your paper and you've chosen your 3 questions, don't forget to fill in this section with the question numbers you've answered. For example, if your first question was 10, you indicate 10 here. If the next question was 6 and the 8, you indicate your question numbers. That's all for this video. Thank you so much guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you comment, like, and share the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.